Our sponsor for today's podcast is Lynn Junk Removal. They are a locally owned business in Northwest Ohio with competitive prices and friendly service. They currently serve Northwest Ohio and Northeast Indiana. Some services they do are demolition, moving, and junk removal. You can call or text at 419-230-8418 for an estimate or any questions. We'd like to thank Lynn Junk Removal for being a sponsor. Welcome back to another episode of Flagrant Foul Fridays. This is our Christmas episode. We're bringing you news and some Christmas history for our special. Merry Christmas to everybody.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Like I said, today's episode is going to include some Christmas history on the NBA, the NFL, and college football. And we got some more interesting news throughout the episode. We hope you stick around and listen.
All right, so for this episode, we're going to try something new and start with the special segment. I think in the future we might go with that approach as well. If you like that, let us know in the comments. If you like the old setup better where we do the news first, also let us know. So here's some Christmas Day NBA facts for you. The NBA is the longest running Christmas Day sports tradition in the US, dating back to 1947 when the New York Knicks beat the Providence Steamrollers. This was at Madison Square Garden. And then, except for the 1998 lockout year, the NBA has scheduled Christmas games every year since 1947. And the Knicks have played the most Christmas Day games, mostly due to their early prominence and Madison Square Garden's centrality. And then here's some stat leaders on Christmas Day. First, we got LeBron James as the all-time leading Christmas Day scorer with the most cumulative points in Christmas history. I believe he's second place on assists as well, and he obviously is still playing, so who knows if he could beat that. Bernard King holds the record for the most points on a Christmas game. That was 60 points in 1984. And then Stephen Curry has the record for most career three-pointers on Christmas Day. And the Miami Heat have the best winning percentage on Christmas Day. They are 12-2 with an 85.7% win percentage. And then we wanted to talk about a couple iconic games that happened in Christmas Day history. So in 2004, Kobe played Shaq in their first ever matchup after Shaq left the Lakers. This was one of the most watched Christmas games ever, and the Heat beat the Lakers 104 to 102 in an overtime thriller. And then 2016, the Cavs and the Warriors had a rematch after the finals the year prior, and Kyrie Irving hit a game winner to win the game. And now I want to talk about some of the games that are happening on Christmas this year. We have the Cavs and the Knicks, the Spurs and the Thunder, the Mavs and the Warriors, the Rockets and the Lakers, and the Timberwolves and the Nuggets. Didn't the Spurs just play the Thunder?
Yeah, the Spurs just played the Thunder and they beat the Thunder.
So they're playing them 2 days in a row? Yeah, they are. Or I guess there's a 1 day gap, but still.
Yeah, I wonder if they're playing at the same location.
I don't know. But we're going to talk about this later, actually. But the Spurs have been kind of dominating the Thunder recently. So that's an interesting story developing there.
Moving on to the NFL, Christmas Day. Early Christmas football dates back to the mid 20th century, but the league avoided the Christmas holiday for decades due to the fan backlash over the family time conflicts with players and viewers. In recent years, the NFL has embraced Christmas more aggressively, scheduling multiple games when the holiday falls on a weekend. Some records that we found for the Christmas Day game include some rushing records by Alvin Kamara in 2020. He tied the NFL record with 6 rushing touchdowns and had 155 yards on 22 carries. Olandis Gary for the 1998 Christmas game. He rushed for 185 yards, which is the Christmas record at the time, and had two touchdowns. Le'Veon Bell in 2016, he had 191 total yards in a good game. For passing records, we got Aaron Rodgers in 2011. He threw for 283 yards and five touchdowns against the Bears, which is the most passing touchdowns ever on Christmas. Boomer for the Bengals in 1989, he set the record for the most passing yards with 367, and his team still lost that game. For receiving records, we got Derek Mason. He leads the all-time record for receiving yards at 263 yards. Kevin Williams in 1995 had 203 receiving yards and two touchdowns. Travis Kelce in 2016 had 160 receiving yards and a touchdown in their win. And Larry Centers in 1995 had a Christmas record 12 receptions for 172 yards. For the defensive records, Chris Dolman in 1989 recorded four sacks in the same game that Boomer had his 300 yards.
Who won that game?
The Vikings won that game.
So sacks are better than yards. You heard it here first.
Some games going on tomorrow, or as of Wednesday, it would be tomorrow. As of when this goes up, it would be yesterday. The
Christmas.
cow,
You can just say
yeah,
Christmas.
the Christmas games this year are the Cowboys and the Commanders, the Lions and the Vikings, and the Broncos versus the Chiefs for the late night game.
And now for the college football Christmas games. Um, they actually have a long history of bowl games being played around Christmas, but very few are ever held on Christmas. Um, some rivalry games have been played on Christmas though. Um, and like I said, it's kind of rare that they play today on Christmas, but it is a very like important week leading up to bowl games and stuff. So there's a lot of focus on injury updates, prep for the games, brackets, that sort of thing.
Some other sports that also participate in Christmas games or did participate in Christmas games. The NHL, they used to play on Christmas but stopped in 1971. Now they observe it as a strict holiday break. International soccer does not play on Christmas Day, but Boxing Day, December 26th, is one of the biggest soccer days of the year in the UK.
And then here's some fun facts about multiple different sports on Christmas. The NBA's Christmas tradition helped the league grow, especially during the rise of the TV era. So it became a cultural staple for them. And then, like Nick just said, uh, Boxing Day soccer in the UK is so iconic that many Americans accidentally think that it's referring to boxing matches. And fun fact about that, the US did used to do Christmas Day boxing events, and I think they still do sometimes, but they're not as prevalent as they were in like the 90s. I see why there would be confusion there.
Yeah, I actually used to think the same thing.
All right, now we're going to move into our normally scheduled news. So first we have college football. So we have a couple updates. Brian Smith from Ohio admitted to drinking in the office, and there have been reports that he had a relationship with an undergraduate student. However, I haven't heard much more about that or where that information even came from. Have you, Nick?
I haven't seen anything about this since last week when they were really big on it.
Yeah, and with all the other stuff going on with like Michigan, I feel like there's a lot of misinformation that people like to spread. So, but we're definitely keeping an eye out for that. Either way, it sounds like the situation might be worse than first reported.
Former Michigan co-offensive coordinator Matt Weiss is set to face 10 counts of aggravated ID theft charges. He also faces 14 counts of unauthorized access and is being sued in a separate case by more than 70 women who claim that he illegally hacked into their private accounts and stole their personal photos. He was fired by Michigan in January 2023 after spending the previous 2 seasons on Jim Harbaugh's staff as an assistant. His alleged crimes also date back to his time with the Baltimore Ravens, where he coached for more than a decade. Weiss faces more than 70 years in prison if he is convicted.
Oh my gosh. That's kind of a crazy update.
Yeah, so
I'm just wondering, like, what did he want out of that?
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he was using it to, because Michigan had that cheating scandal. I don't know if he was trying to use those accounts to get more information,
I
so that
mean,
way they
since
can
it
buy
dated back
tickets.
to the Ravens time, I think it's more either his own like personal weird wants or he just wanted to like ransom them for money or something.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's crazy though. It sounds like he's probably not going to beat that case if there's 70 women claiming that.
Yeah.
You know?
Delaware holds on against Louisiana in the '68 Venture Bowl to win their first bowl game as an FBS school. On another note, on bowl games, despite having a 10-3 season, Kennesaw State got blown out 41-6 in their first FBS bowl game against Western Michigan.
Weren't we talking about them last week and how
Yeah,
we had
having
kind of high hopes for them?
yeah having their best season in their past couple of years, and then they go and get blown out.
Kind of reminds me of JMU versus Oregon. I had a feeling they were going to get blown out, and they did.
Yeah, well, they did pretty good against Oregon.
They did? What
Yeah,
game were you watching?
they didn't get as blown out as
I mean,
Tulane did.
all their points came in like the fourth when the game was already over. I think Oregon could have scored more. They were down like 30 something in the half.
I think I saw they had like 500 passing yards though, or 500 total yards against Oregon.
Well, maybe Oregon's defense just sucks. I don't know.
So that's a pretty good on their part, getting 500 yards against a Power Four team in the playoffs.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Uh, in other news, Kalen DeBoer became the first head coach to win a college football playoffs game with multiple schools. He did this with Alabama and Washington. And he's at Alabama now, right?
Yeah, he's currently at Alabama. Alabama keeps their streak alive of not losing by the same team twice in the same season. They lost to Oklahoma earlier this year, which with them beating Oklahoma this previous weekend, Oklahoma is now 0-5 in college football playoff games. The last time this happened to Alabama was in 1893 versus Birmingham Athletic Club. And one thing to note is they lost to Michigan twice last year, but it was not in the same season.
Speaking of Alabama, they are now tied with the largest comeback in college football playoff history. They were trailing by 17 points at one point against Oklahoma.
On the topic of the college football playoffs, Ryan Day says that he will take over play calling versus Miami, and Brian Hartline will focus on the receivers.
Yeah, he said he doesn't want to have that on Brian Hartline's table, but I just feel like if he's hired to work for us, he should kind of do his job, whether or not he gets hired somewhere else or not.
Yeah, I mean, I see both sides. He's the offensive coordinator right now. He's getting paid to do that, but he's got a lot on his plate with becoming a head coach now at USF. And I think Ryan Day's just giving him a break because, they've been together for 6 years now, I believe. So
Yeah,
I'm sure they're good friends.
I saw a lot of mixed feelings about this. I saw some people saying how Ryan Day was play calling when we had like CJ Stroud and stuff, and we had like historically great offense in terms of like historical stats and stuff. But at the same time, we didn't make it that far in the playoffs those years. And some people claim that some of his like third down decision making led to that. So yeah, I agree. I kind of see both sides of it also.
Yeah, they're kind of two different kinds of coaches, too. Ryan Day was more of a put up the numbers, and Brian Hartline was more of the conservative guy.
Yeah, I just feels bad like that we've been doing good all season and then now this is potentially going to ruin our playoff hopes. I will say it seemed like last week against uh not last week, 2 weeks ago against Indiana, the play calling fell off. So I wonder if Ryan Day was involved in that.
I saw a lot of people speculating that he probably was.
Yeah, so that doesn't give me high hopes, but I don't know. When you have a offense like we have, it's pretty hard to mess up too bad. But again, when we're playing top five teams, possibly, I mean, you gotta be top of your game. Speaking of Ohio State, Legend Bay officially signs with Ohio State. So it's good to see that that situation is finally taken care of. Um, who knows if there's going to be any sort of lasting tension or effects on his play, though.
So this isn't really D1 college football, but I saw something about this, and we talked a little bit about Illinois State earlier, like a week or two ago, when they beat North Dakota State. But so in the FCS playoffs, they are going into the national championship. Illinois State and Montana State. So this playoff system actually consists of 24 teams instead of 12 teams, and their top eight seeds receive a bye instead of the top four teams. It's almost like a high school bracket when I looked at it. So I think it would be interesting if D1 actually implemented that style. I think there'd be a lot of maybe upset worthy teams in there. Maybe a concept to think about for college football. I know they're talking about expanding to 14 teams.
How does March Madness do it?
They have a bunch of teams. Every team plays in the first round.
Yeah, but
If
like, how do they pick? Is it conference and rank? Kind of mixed?
it's, I know it's based off rank and probably strength of schedule. I don't really follow March Madness enough to know
It
how
just seems
teams are
like
put in.
March Madness, you get a better mixture of like underdog teams with teams that actually deserve to be in. But that helps when you have more options. But yeah, anyway, speaking of playoffs, we got an update on the bracket. So Oregon beat JMU, Alabama beat Oklahoma, Ole Miss beat Tulane, and Miami, Florida upset Texas A&M. So now we have Oregon versus Texas Tech, Alabama, Indiana, Ole Miss, Georgia, and Miami versus Ohio State. I don't know about you, Nick, but I feel like Miami upsetting Texas A&M, especially with such a low scoring game, that gives me really good hopes for Ohio State's game going into this.
Yeah, I know Miami hasn't really had their good games. Uh, like you said, they won 10-3, but Texas A&M, they were a really good team coming into this playoff, or they were speculated to be one of the best teams because they were undefeated until they played Texas. So I guess we'll have to see. I mean, I haven't watched much of Miami besides the games where Carson Beck threw multiple interceptions and no touchdowns.
Yeah. But we mentioned earlier in the year, he made on like, I think he was in the top five, or at least the top 10 of the most, what was it, passer accuracy this year?
So I guess we'll just have to wait and see if Ohio State, their defense continues to play dominant.
I have no doubt that our defense will be good. I will say our passing defense looked a little bad against Indiana, but the fact that we only gave up 13 is like you can win games with that, you know?
Yeah.
The only thing that worries me is that the last time we played on New Year's, we missed a field goal to win the game. And I think that was against Carson Beck, wasn't it?
Yeah, because he was on Georgia at the time.
But was he the starter then? I don't remember.
Uh, I don't remember. It was either him or Stetson Bennett.
I think it might have been Stetson actually. Um, but yeah. However, the last time we lost 10-13 going into the playoffs, we won the national championship.
I looked it up, and it was Stetson Bennett who played.
Okay. That's what I thought. All right, we're going to move on to some coaching updates now. So, Ole Miss hires LSU's interim head coach Frank Wilson to their staff.
Texas fired their defensive coordinator Pete Kwiatkowski and hired Will Muschamp as their defensive coordinator.
Arizona State hired head coach Kenny Dillingham to a new contract.
Arizona is hiring Aaron Knotts as the school's next general manager. He spent the last 12 seasons on various roles at Washington, and he was last director of internal operations and football strategy and worked as a chief of staff and associate athletic director.
Michigan's offensive coordinator Chip Lindsey is leaving to become a new offensive coordinator at Missouri.
Florida is hiring Tulane's offensive coordinator Joe Craddock as the new quarterback coach.
Florida is also hiring Tulane defensive coordinator Greg Gasparato as the new inside linebacker coach. UCLA finalized a deal with JMU's defensive coordinator Colin Hitchler for their DC opening.
UNC hired Bobby Petrino as their new offensive coordinator. Petrino is a former head coach at Arkansas, Louisville, and the Atlanta Falcons.
And Coastal Carolina hired Nick Petrino as their new offensive coordinator. He's been the offensive coordinator at Missouri State and was an interim head coach in their bowl game. He also was the QB coach at Louisville during Lamar's Heisman season.
South Carolina is expected to hire Penn State's defensive line coach Deion Barnes as the defensive end and outside linebacker coach. He's been Penn State's defensive line coach the past 3 seasons and worked with the line there since 2020. He coached Abdul Carter, Chop Robinson, and Adisa Isaac at PSU since 2020 when Barnes started at Penn State. The school leads the nation with 7 defensive ends drafted.
All right, now we're going to move on to the transfer portal news. So for Colorado, we have safety Tafik Bayard, defensive lineman Brandon Davis Swain, true freshman offensive tackle Card Smith, true freshman edge Alexander McPherson, wide receiver Draylon Miller, defensive lineman Gabriel Lightfoot, defensive lineman Lawfick Thompson, linebacker Sean Myers, and safety John Slaughter.
At Washington State, we have edge Malachi Tace and running back Adam Muhammad.
And at Florida, we have cornerback Jameer Grimsley, wide receiver Tank Hawkins, tight end Hayden Hanson, offensive lineman Marcus Maskell, defensive lineman Mikai Boryu, and true freshman wide receiver Nashawn Montgomery.
Washington, we have true freshman and wide receiver Raiden Vines Bright.
And at Oregon, we got wide receiver Justius Lowe, cornerback Sion Lulau, and safety Kingston Lopa.
At USF, defensive back Jarvis Lee, defensive back Fred Gaskin, quarterback Byron Brown, defensive line Trayvon Mitchell, and cornerback Jonas Duclona.
Auburn, we got defensive lineman Malik Blockton, linebacker Jamonta Waller, edge Amaris Williams, quarterback Ashton Daniels, defensive back Kane Lee, linebacker Robert Woodyard Jr., and cornerback Donovan Starr.
At Ohio State, wide receiver Bryson Rogers.
Who I've never even heard of.
He's played a little bit more this season, but I don't think he's going to get much playing time with all the better players coming in.
Yeah, I figure with the better players coming in and then Brian leaving, he probably just wants to go to maybe a school that he can start for. And then North Carolina State, we got running back Hollywood Smothers and safety Damon Fagan.
Mississippi State quarterback Luke Cromenhoek.
Penn State, we got true freshman edge Chaz Coleman, as well as defensive back A.J. Harris.
Memphis, we have linebacker Everett Rassal Jr., defensive back Kamari Wilson, defensive back Chris Bracey, true freshman quarterback Antoine Hale Jr., running back Sutton Smith, wide receiver Jamari Hawkins, and offensive lineman Ethan Newman.
At Cal Poly, we got standout linebacker Mikey Diamato, which I've never even heard of that school.
They're like a D2 school.
They got a standout player though, leaving.
Yeah, he's probably looking to make some D1 and make a name for himself. UCF defensive lineman Rodney Laura.
Iowa State, we got quarterback Rocco Becht, wide receiver Breck Eskilsson, wide receiver Xavier Townsend, and running back Carson Hansen.
Nebraska defensive back Malcolm Hartzog.
TCU, we got quarterback Josh Hoover.
Missouri quarterback Bo Pribula. Wide receiver Marquise Johnson. And offensive lineman Henry Fanuku.
Oklahoma defensive back Kendall Dolby, linebacker Kobe McKenzie, tight end Caden Helms, offensive lineman Jacob Sexton, running back Javante Barnes.
Kansas State wide receiver Jace Brown. And offensive lineman Devin Voss.
And at Tennessee, we got running back Peyton Lewis.
Texas wide receiver DeAndre Moore.
North Carolina, we got edge Tyler Thompson and true freshman quarterback Bryce Baker.
Florida State, we got tight end Randy Pittman, tight end Landon Thomas, and quarterback Brock Glenn.
And at LSU, we got quarterback Colin Hurley as well as offensive lineman Cohen Echols.
Maryland quarterback Justin Martin.
And at Cincinnati, we got defensive lineman Micah Coleman.
At Troy, we got wide receiver DJ Epps.
And at Oklahoma State, we got linebacker Wendell Gregory.
South Carolina, we got wide receiver Brian Rowe, offensive lineman Carson Henry, offensive lineman Tree Babalade, and quarterback Aaron Nolan.
Wow, Aaron Nolan's leaving?
Probably because they got Lenora Sellers, and he's probably trying to find a place where he can start.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it seems like he may never get to start. Anyways, for Tulane, we got defensive lineman Trevon McAlpine, edge Harvey Dyson, true freshman running back Javin Gordon, and all conference offensive lineman Shadir Hurst, as well as cornerback Jaheim Johnson.
Louisiana running back Bill Davis and running back Zillan Perry.
Old Dominion, we got wide receiver Trey Brown, offensive lineman Martin Woodsma, safety Jerome Carter III, wide receiver Ja'Cory Thomas, and wide receiver Naeem Abdul Rahim.
Colorado State tight end Rocky Beers.
It's a great name. Wisconsin, we got wide receiver Eugene Hilton Jr. and running back Dylan Jones.
Notre Dame true freshman safety Jadon Blair and defensive back Ben Minich.
And at Baylor, we got the standout linebacker Keaton Thomas.
Texas A&M cornerback Will Lee and cornerback Javon Thomas.
We got running back Harry Stewart at Kansas.
Kennesaw State got quarterback Amari Odom.
Syracuse, running back Yasim Willis.
James Madison, we got left tackle Joseph Simmons, defensive back DJ Barksdale, safety Tyler Brown, and all conference offensive lineman Riley Robel.
And at UCLA, we have quarterback Luke Duncan.
Standout quarterback Jalen Rayner from Arkansas State.
And at Southeastern, we got the standout wide receiver Jalen Damagoo.
And finally, we got Louisville with standout edge AJ Green.
AJ Green's the edge now and back in college. All right, now we have some NFL draft declarers. First, we got USC wide receiver Makai Lemon, who I think we talked about last week, right?
Yeah, he won the Bolitnikoff.
So we even said that maybe that's why USC is getting some more recruits because they've got some good players, but I guess he's gone.
LSU cornerback Mansour Delane. He also won an award last week.
Texas A&M wide receiver Casey Conception. What? It's an interesting last name.
He also won an award last week.
I don't remember.
He was the all-purpose player.
Uh,
And Florida State cornerback Thomas Castellanos, who we talked about last week about him trying to get his extra year of,
Quarterback.
uh, his extra year of eligibility, but they denied it.
I thought he was going to go to court.
I don't think his case went through.
Hmm.
I don't think they allowed it.
Maybe he just gave up. I don't know. All right, now we're going to move on to the NFL. And it has been a pretty eventful week, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of stuff going on, game wise and outside of the NFL.
Yeah. Well, let's get right into it. So it's been reported that the Bears will expand their stadium search after the proposed Arlington Heights Stadium was declared as not a top priority in the 2026 year. This was decided by state leadership. They did say, however, that they might possibly move to Northwest Indiana. Now, there hasn't been news whether or not this would make their names change from Chicago to wherever they move to. But Indiana's Governor Mike Braun responded to the Bears' X post. He said, "The Chicago Bears recognize Indiana's pro-business climate, and I am ready to work with them to build a new stadium in Northwest Indiana. This move would deliver a major economic boost, create jobs, and bring another premier NFL franchise to the Hoosier State. Let's get it done." When I saw this news, I immediately sent it to my friend who's a Bears fan, and he lives just outside of Chicago. And he said that the leadership in the Bears has been terrible for the last couple years, and he's very upset about this.
Definitely different to see two NFL teams in Indiana.
Yeah, that doesn't concern me too much because we see that in other sports. Heck, we even see it in the NFL
Yeah,
with the Browns and the Bengals. But the thing that concerns me is Chicago is, one of those sort of staple cities. You may hate it, that's fine. But you're not going to deny that it's one of the most recognizable cities in the US. It feels like there should be a team there, no?
yeah, they got a team there from all four major sports as of right now.
I just I don't get why this even had to happen in the first place. Did they not want to like do renovations on their stadium? Were they not bringing enough money? Like I'm just kind of confused.
I think they were wanting to build a new stadium, but they couldn't, I guess, get the Bears leadership, or no, it'd be Illinois' leadership
Yeah.
to agree upon it. Which, I mean, the Bears are a very historic franchise, which doesn't make sense why Illinois wouldn't want to work with them.
Maybe they just want them to stay at the old stadium. It would save the state money, I don't know.
Yeah, but in the end, with them wanting to move out, they would lose money.
That's true. Yeah, this might just be a play on the Bears' part to try to get the legislation to change. Sort of a bluff. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see.
In other stadium news, the Chiefs will move to Kansas City, Kansas to build a new stadium for the 2031 season.
It's quite a ways away.
I saw a lot of people were upset about this, even though they're literally moving 15 to 20 minutes away from the other stadium.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure that Chiefs fans know where the stadium is, because a lot of them are bandwagons. Yeah, but that'll be cool. I imagine they'll probably do something kind of cool. I don't know if they're gonna go for like an indoor expensive look, kind of like LA or what. I know historically they've played outdoors, but they might not want to do that with the weather.
Hmm.
It wouldn't be a show in the past couple of weeks without some sort of crime news, right?
Yeah.
And I guess we technically covered some earlier, but the brother of Ram star Puka Nakua, Samson Nakua, was one of two men arrested over the weekend for allegedly stealing a vehicle that reportedly belonged to Lakers forward Adu Thero. There's currently an ongoing investigation.
Vincent Nakua, a little history about him. He played college at Utah and BYU and spent some time in training camps with the Indianapolis Colts and the New Orleans Saints. He was suspended for one game by the UFL in April for slapping a fan during an altercation following a loss. As part of that punishment, he also agreed to participate in community service.
Sounds like DK Metcalf this last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a crazy situation. I'm not sure if he like knows that Lakers forward or if he just has an expensive car that he wanted. But it's kind of weird that something like that involved two different sports in some way. All right, now in maybe the most important news we've ever covered, if you're a Panthers fan, that is. We have an interesting coincidence that has been occurring for the last 2 decades or so. In 2002, Ohio State was the national champs, and the Panthers had a losing record. The next season, the Panthers opened their game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Jennifer Lopez filed for divorce against Chris Judd. That same year, the Panthers made the Super Bowl. Now, fast forward to 2014, what happened? Ohio State was national champions, and the Panthers had a losing record. Then the next season, they opened their game against, you guessed it, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Jennifer Lopez filed for divorce against Mark Anthony. And what happened? The Panthers made the Super Bowl. Now fast forward to 2024-2025. Who won the national championship? That's right, Ohio State. And who had a losing record? That's right, the Panthers. And who did they open their season against this year? The Jaguars. And who did Jennifer Lopez file for divorce this year? Ben Affleck. So that means, in theory, the Panthers will make the Super Bowl this year.
Start placing your betting odds.
Are they even eligible for the playoffs?
Yeah, they're the fourth seed as of right now. They beat the Buccaneers and took over the NFC South.
Well, Nick, do you think the Panthers are making the Super Bowl this year?
No, but it would be funny because of this coincidence. We had some history happen this week. Taysom Hill is now the only player with over 1,000 passing yards, rushing yards, and receiving yards in the Super Bowl era.
And the Jets are on pace to set a record for the fewest takeaways in NFL history. They currently have 0 interceptions through 15 games. The fewest amount of interceptions in a season is 2, set by the 2024 San Francisco 49ers.
Mike Tomlin is the third youngest head coach to reach 200 wins. He currently has 19 years with 19 years with a winning record. The current record is 21 years set by Tom Landry.
And Myles Garrett is now a half of a sack away from tying and 1 sack away from breaking the single season sack record. We've been talking about this for the last couple weeks. It seems like he's going to do it.
Yeah, and he could do it against the Steelers, against Mike Tomlin, because they play this weekend.
A little rivalry game record.
Yeah, and what's even better about that record is TJ Watt is tied right now with the record from, I believe, last season or the season before.
Rub it
And
in his face.
yeah, rub it in his face after doing it against his team.
Well, there you go.
Josh Allen passed Tom Brady and Russell Wilson for career regular season wins in his first 8 seasons. Allen is now at 87 wins, and Mahomes is in first with 89 wins, which means he could tie, but he will not be able to break that record.
Jackson Smith and Jigba breaks Seattle's single-season reception record with 104, which was previously held by Tyler Lockett at 100.
Jackson Smith and the Jigba is also 328 yards away from breaking Calvin Johnson's single season receiving record. He would have to average 160 yards, 164 yards per game to tie the record. The last two opponents are the Panthers, who are 17th overall for pass defense, and the 49ers, who are 22nd overall for pass defense.
So it could happen, but I don't know. It seems unlikely.
Either way, still a historic season for Jackson Smith and the Jigba.
Oh yeah, definitely. Jason Myers needs to make 8 more field goals to break the NFL single season record for most field goals in a season.
Before last week, he was on pace, but he'd have to get 4 field goals a game.
And that would also mean Jason would need to like not get many yards probably. There's 2 records fighting against each other on the Seahawks right now.
Jason Myers is also 34 points away from breaking LaDainian Tomlinson's single season points record.
Is that for any player? Like any position?
Yeah, that's any position.
Yeah. Rams are officially the first NFL team to lose a game after scoring a touchdown in overtime. Yeah, that's kind of a surprising record, though, you know?
Yeah. Speaking of the Rams game, it's the first time in Seahawks franchise history winning a game after being down 15 plus in the fourth quarter. They are now 1-172.
They are also the first team in NFL history to win a game in overtime on a 2-point conversion, as well as the Seahawks converted 3 2-point conversions for the first time in franchise history. A lot of people are calling this the game of the season, and I would have to agree. It was crazy.
We have that one 2 point conversion. That was probably the wildest 2 point conversion of all time.
In fact, let's talk about it a bit.
Watching that 2 point conversion, it was kind of weird.
Yeah, I think it was a correct call, but yeah, this is probably one of the most insane 2-point conversions I've ever seen. So essentially, he threw the ball, kind of like a screen pass to the wide receiver out wide, and it he kind of like just dropped it. It rolled into the end zone super slowly, and then this guy on the Seahawks just casually picks it up to give to the ref. However, in doing so, he scored a touchdown as he picked it up because it was declared a backwards pass. So it was actually
It was a 2 point conversion, not a touchdown.
okay, but you know what I mean. He scored.
He scored.
And so they ruled it a backwards pass, so the ball was still live. And
And just the odds that the ball went into the end zone and the
the guy
Seahawks
just
player picked it
casually
up.
picks it up. Yeah, it was a lot of Rams fans are hating on the refs, but I mean it's one of those rare things. Technically, it is. That's how it should have been called, you know. And I don't think there was a whistle blown.
Yeah.
So, so let's just talk about the game. So, for context, division title was on the line. There was a 16-point fourth quarter comeback. Again, that crazy 2-point conversion. A punt return touchdown by the Seahawks to basically set them up for overtime in the first place. Puka Nakua had 225 yards, which watching that game, I don't know how our defense is ranked as high as they are because we were just letting him and really other receivers walk all over us the entire game. The Rams missed a field goal to take the lead with 2 minutes left, and then the Seahawks won in overtime. It was a crazy game.
Definitely, I would say the game of the year.
Oh yeah,
With how good both teams were, I'd say definitely game of the year. Moving on to some more history. Tua Tagovailoa is now the first top 10 pick in NFL history to become an emergency third string quarterback.
kind of sad to see us fall off. Doesn't help that he had like what 4 concussions.
Yeah, I think he's just trying to hold out for retirement to get his benefits. Honestly, I hope he can revitalize his career, but it's hard telling.
And then last, we have the Chiefs' Chris Oladokun becoming the first player of direct African descent to play quarterback in the regular season. This comes, of course, after Patrick Mahomes got injured.
I believe he was signed by uh, from the Bills practice squad is where he came from. We're going to move on to some injuries. Starting off with the Packers, Jordan Love. He left the game against the Bears, I believe, in the second quarter for a concussion protocol, but he's expected to practice this week. So there has been really no updates on if he'll play against the Ravens, but he is expected to practice. The Rams head coach Sean McVay said he does not anticipate Devontae Adams to play Monday versus the Falcons.
And the Browns running back Quinshon Judkins has dislocated his ankle and fractured his fibula. It's unfortunate.
Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski said Deshaun Watson will not be reactivated this season after previously being put on a 21-day practice window.
The Chiefs' Gardner Minshew went out with a knee injury but did not tear his ACL, so he will still miss the remainder of the season, though.
Vikings J.J. McCarthy obtained a hairline fracture in his hand and will be out this week.
Ravens' Lamar Jackson has a serious back contusion and is day by day. He did not practice Wednesday and may not play Saturday.
Colts Anthony Richardson enters his 21-day practice window.
And the Raiders are placing tight end Brock Bowers on a season-ending injured reserve list because he has a knee injury and he's been battling that all season.
Jaden Daniels on the Commanders has had limited participation in practice this week, and head coach Dan Quinn said Josh Johnson will be starting against the Cowboys. Now we'll move back into some crazy football that happened over the week, going in with the Bears versus the Packers, final 2 minutes in overtime. So the Bears, they kicked a field goal to make it 16-9, and then the Bears recovered an onside kick and throw a touchdown on fourth down. They also converted the extra point, which set them up to go 16-16. The Bears sacked Malik Willis to force overtime, and the Packers got the ball to start overtime, but the Packers fumbled the snap, and the Bears recovered, leading to a 46-yard touchdown to win the game.
One thing to note, though, is that Jordan Love got injured pretty early in that game. So who's to say that the Packers wouldn't have won that game had he stayed healthy?
Yeah, I think if he didn't go out with a concussion, they probably would have beat the Bears.
Yeah,
But who's to say the Bears didn't come back and make it a closer game?
yeah, that's fair. I'm just saying, like, the Packers beat them a couple weeks ago, so I don't think this is necessarily a sign that the Bears are all of a sudden better than the Packers. But I don't know. We'll see what happens come playoff time.
Yeah, the Bears play the 49ers this week, so I guess we'll get a real testament to how good the Bears are, how good the 49ers are.
How good everyone is. And then we have another crazy event that happened in a game this week. In the final play of the Detroit Lions game, Amon-Ra St. Brown caught the ball, flipped it to Jared Goff, and then Goff ran it in for a game-winning touchdown. But St. Brown was called for offensive pass interference, so Detroit lost the game.
Yeah, and I didn't see the game, but I heard that the ref said that the play was not reviewable because the clock had already hit zero.
That's a rough thing to happen.
Yeah, so with that, the Steelers actually ended up beating the Lions.
Crazy way to end the game, and if you're a Lions fan, you're probably very upset.
Yeah. Moving on to some NFL suspensions. Uh, really haven't seen much of suspensions this season, but all of a sudden we get three in 1 week. So starting off with the Chargers linebacker Denzel Perryman, he is suspended 2 games for what the NFL called repeated violations of playing rules intended to protect the health and safety of players. So when I was looking at some of his plays to see why this may have been a suspension, he was doing some head-to-head contact, potentially targeting. So I think those are the main reasons why he ended up getting a two-game suspension.
And then, like we briefly mentioned earlier, the Steelers wide receiver DK Metcalf has been suspended 2 games for a swipe he took at a fan during Sunday's game in Detroit. I heard that I don't know if this is official, but I heard that the fan might have said like racial slurs and some other stuff. It doesn't necessarily warrant DK swiping at him, but you know, it's one of those weird situations that you kind of feel for the player and the fan in some regard.
I did see they found the fan and they were able to ask him, and he said that he did not say a racial slur, but
I mean,
it's his word against DK's word,
yeah,
so it's kind of hard to say.
I think there is a video online of like the moments leading up to it. I don't know if that caught him saying anything or not, but
I know that they said that he called him Decalen by his full name, but I don't know why that would kind of trigger him to go off and try to throw a punch at him.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, DK is one of those players that has had kind of issues like this in the past, kind of similar to Draymond Green. Um, but I just find it coincidental that the the week after we talk about him, he does something like this.
The final suspension, Seahawks linebacker Derek Hall is suspended 1 game for stepping on the Rams offensive guard Kevin Dotson. He is currently working to appeal this suspension as we talk and claimed it was accidental. Watching the clip, it's kind of hard to tell, so I don't know if he's going to be able to appeal that suspension.
Yeah, I haven't seen the clip, but it's unfortunate. That's kind of a big loss for us, isn't it?
Yeah, he's a good linebacker.
All right, now we got some playoff projections and updates. So the Seahawks have clinched a playoff spot and take the number 1 seed in the NFC or
They clinched the number 1 seed in the NFC West and the
NFC West.
NFC
Oh, both. Okay.
for right
Nice.
now.
Yeah, for now.
The Eagles clinched a playoff spot. They now have become the first team to repeat as NFC East champions since Philadelphia won division titles from 2001 to 2004.
And of no surprise to anyone, the Cowboys are now eliminated from playoff contention.
The Bears clinched the playoff spot after the Steelers defeated the Lions.
And the Patriots clinched a playoff spot after beating the Ravens. One thing I want to talk about with the Patriots, though, I saw that they have the same amount of wins this season as the Giants against teams, what, over 500 wins?
Yeah, teams that have over 500 win percentage.
And the Giants are one of the worst teams.
Yeah, those were the Giants' only 2 wins were above 500 teams.
Yeah, so I think it kind of shows how easy of a schedule they've had this year. I do think they have a lot of potential with the players that they have, especially like Trevion Henderson. But I just don't think they've shown enough to really say that they're one of the best teams right now in the NFL.
On the topic of the AFC, with the Colts lost to the 49ers, the Jaguars, Chargers, and Bills clinch a playoff spot.
And the Panthers have taken the number 1 spot in the NFC South because of their win over the Buccaneers. This would be their first NFC South title since 2015 if they can hold on. And Latham Ransom picked Baker Mayfield off in the final minute to win the game, which I believe Lathan hasn't gotten a lot of playing time, right?
We haven't really heard much about him,
Or not
so
really playing time, but I don't think he's like put up any stats, like meaningful stats, you know? This could be a big confidence boost for him.
yeah. Hopefully, this can spark something in his career to hopefully become a well-known player, maybe potentially a Pro Bowl player. Moving on to the NFC Playoff projection: the Seahawks are the first seed right now with a 100% chance of making the playoffs. Bears are at the 2 seed with a 100% chance. Eagles are at the 3 seed with a 100% chance. At 4, we have the Panthers, like we said, taking that NFC South spot from the Bucks with a 43% chance. 49ers at 5 seed have a 100% chance, and the Rams at the 6 seed right behind them at the 100% chance. And the Packers right now have a 93% chance at the 7 seed. With the Lions losing this week, that dropped their chances down to 7%. And the Buccaneers are at a 57% chance to get into the playoffs, depending on what happens in the NFC South.
Yeah, the NFC West is on top of the world right now, huh?
Yeah, they're probably the best conference this season.
And then for the AFC, we got the Broncos at the 1 seed, the Patriots at the 2 seed, and the Jaguars at the 3 seed, all with a 100% chance of making the playoffs. Um, then the Steelers are at the 4 with 91, Bills at the 5th with 100, Chargers at the 6 with 100, Texans at 7 with 97%, Colts at 8th with 3%, and the Ravens at 9% and 9. It's sad to see how much the Colts have fallen off after the start of this season, and the injury to their starting quarterback did not help.
Yeah, it's said they were the 1 seed at one point this season, and now they're probably not going to make the playoffs. So earlier this week, I believe it was actually yesterday, the Pro Bowl teams were released for the NFL. So we're just going to briefly go over these teams, and uh, we'll talk about who the starters are and who all got selected for each position.
Now, is this just selected players? It's not necessarily people that will go.
This is selected players. It's depending on injuries and who makes the Super Bowl. So, like we mentioned earlier, Brock Bowers is on season ending injury reserve, but he made the Pro Bowl, so he won't be playing, and they'll probably have a replacement for him. So, these are like fan votes. That's how these players get in.
Gotcha.
So, starting with the AFC quarterbacks, we got Josh Allen. He's going to be the starter, followed by Justin Herbert and Drake May.
And then the NFC quarterbacks, we got Matthew Stafford as the starter, followed by Sam Darnold and Dak Prescott.
AFC running backs, we got Jonathan Taylor as the starter, and then Devon Achan and James Cook.
And then the NFC running backs, we got Jahmyr Gibbs as the starter, followed by Christian McCaffrey and Bijan Robinson.
For the AFC fullback, we have Patrick Ricard.
And for the NFC fullback, we got Kyle Juszczyk.
One thing I want to note is usually these are the guys that make it every year. Kyle Juszczyk and Patrick Ricard, Ravens and 49ers fullbacks.
It's kind of one of those weird positions that it's not necessarily actually like assigned a player always. Sometimes you just throw your running back in there.
Yeah, that's true. Moving on to the AFC wide receivers, our starters are Jamar Chase and Nico Collins, and then the other two receivers are Zay Flowers and Cortland Sutton.
And the NFC receivers are Puka Nakua and Jackson Smith and Jigba as starters, and then George Pickens and Amon-Ra St. Brown.
AFC tight ends, Brock Bowers is the starter technically, but since he's on injured reserve, the second tight end is Travis Kelsey, so Travis Kelsey will probably be the starter.
And the NFC tight ends, we got Trey McBride as the starter, followed by George Kittle.
The AFC's offensive tackles are Garrett Bowles and Deion Dawkins. Those are the starters, followed by Joe Out. And the NFC offensive tackles, Penei Sewell and Tristan Wirfs, are the starters there, followed by Trent Williams.
And then the AFC offensive guards, we got Quinn Meinerz and Quentin Nelson as starters, and Trey Smith. And then the NFC, we got Tyler Smith and Joe Thuney as starters, followed by Chris Lindstrom.
AFC centers, we got Creed Humphrey as the starter and Tyler Linderbaugh.
And for the NFC, we have Drew Dahlman as a starter, followed by Cam Jurgens.
AFC defensive ends, we got Will Anderson Jr. and Miles Garrett as the starters and Max Crosby.
And the NFC, we have Aiden Hutchinson and Micah Parsons as starters, followed by DeMarcus Lawrence.
AFC defensive tackles, Chris Jones and Jeffrey Simmons are the starters, followed by Zach Allen.
NFC, we got Jalen Carter and Leonard Williams as starters, followed by Quinnen Williams.
For the AFC linebackers, we got Nick Bonito, TJ Watt, and Roquan Smith as the starters, followed by Tuli Tuipulotu and Aziz Al Shahir.
And for the NFC, we got Brian Burns, Jared Verse, and Jack Campbell as starters, followed by Byron Young and Zach Bond.
The AFC cornerbacks are Derek Stingley Jr. and Patrick Surtain II as the starters, and Christian Gonzalez and Denzel Ward.
For the NFC, we got J.C. Horn and Devin Witherspoon as a starter, and Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell as subs.
Cooper DeJean. AFC safeties, Jalen Ramsey and Kyle Hamilton are the starters, and Derwin James is the backup.
NFC, we got Kevin Byard and Buda Baker as starters, and Antoine Winfield Jr.
The AFC's long snapper is Ross Matisic.
And the NFC's is John Weeks.
AFC's punter is Jordan Stout.
NFC is Tress Way.
AFC's kicker is Cameron Dicker. The kicker is Dicker.
I knew you were going to say it. And for the NFC, we got Brandon Aubrey.
The AFC's return specialist is Shabir Dyke.
And NFC is Rashid Shaheed.
The AFC special teamer, which is a special blocker, is Ben Skowronek.
Is that a new like position for the Pro Bowl?
I don't know.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I've never seen it in the past.
And then the NFC is Luke Gifford. We got a good amount of Seahawks on this list.
Yeah, the Seahawks, Broncos, Ravens, and 49ers all have 6 players on the Pro Bowl roster this year.
Well, that will do it for the NFL. Now we're going to move on to the NBA, which we don't have a ton to cover this week again, but that's okay.
So we're going to talk about some rule changes from around the league. The NBA is enacting several sports betting policies to its 30 teams, including changing injury reporting rules. Teams will now be required to resubmit injury listings on game day between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. local time and update public reports every 15 minutes. The NBA is also pushing gaming companies for changes to prop bets involving individual players, such as limiting maximum amount that can be set, limitations on unders, limiting population of players, and eliminating problematic bet types like bets on an action on a single play. The NBA and FIBA have also decided that they are going to aim to launch the new European Basketball League in 2027.
I saw some people were very upset about this, but I don't think they fully understand what the European League is and how it's not going to affect the actual NBA that much. They also, I think, said that they're going to financially support the teams to help them get going.
Yeah, it'll be something to watch for and definitely talk about some more as that league progresses.
Okay, now we have some records and some news from this past week. If we look at the top defensive rating players in the NBA currently, the Oklahoma City Thunder have 6 players in the top 10, including the top 5 from AJ Mitchell, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Kaysen Wallace, Isaiah Hartenstein, and then Shea Gilgeous-Alexander at 8th. One other thing I want to talk about is that Klay Thompson is in 10, which you don't traditionally think of him as a great defender. I think
And
he's
there's
got
your guy
pretty good,
Steven Adams at 6.
true. I think Klay has pretty good perimeter defense, though. Do you have thoughts about that?
Watching Klay Thompson when he was at the Warriors, I, he wasn't really a sought out defensive player. Their defensive player was Draymond. But yeah, this is kind of surprising. I mean, I don't typically think of him as a defender, more of a 3-point shooter.
This is also one of the stats that is kind of like considered an advanced stat. I don't think a lot of people necessarily care about it too much. So, take it with a grain of salt. But I think to say that Oklahoma City doesn't have a super team is probably just not true, especially when you look at them defensively. Now, they might not be full of players that are like big name players, at least not yet. But if we're going to say a super team is a team of really good players, then they certainly have that.
Hall of Famer Kevin Garnett is reuniting with the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Lynx in a new, all encompassing role involving business, community efforts, and content development. His long awaited number 21 Wolves jersey is also going to be retired in the next 2 seasons.
SGA became the second player ever to score 20 points over 100 consecutive games. Wilt Chamberlain is the only other player.
Very impressive that he's being compared to Wilt quite a bit this season.
Yeah, and yeah, it seems like Jokic might win the MVP.
Con Newpel became the fastest player to make his first 100 threes in his career at 29 games. Next on the list is Laurie Markkinen, who did it in 41 games.
And Jokic breaks the NBA record previously held by Kareem for the most assists by a center in a career. It's kind of crazy when you consider how Jokic didn't get a ton of playing time at the start of his career, and he's not even done yet.
Yeah, but I don't know Kareem's stats for assists because Jokic is consistently averaging close to a triple double or is averaging a triple double.
Yeah, he's averaging a triple double this year again on some of his best shooting percentages ever. So he's one of the top MVP candidates so far.
Victor Wembanyama has 100 straight games with at least one block. It's
Total
pretty,
beast. Total beast of the game.
it's definitely impressive. I don't know how many times this has been achieved before, but he's a great player defensively, and I think he's honestly going to win Defensive Player of the Year, maybe even 3, 4 more times in his career.
Assuming he stays healthy, I really am looking forward to watching him play the Thunder potentially in the playoffs because um, they have what, 2 wins over them now this season?
Yeah, 2 wins right now.
One of the few teams that have been able to beat them. And like we said, they play tomorrow as well, Christmas. So see what happens.
Well, on that topic of the Thunder have lost 3 of their last 5 games, with 2 of them being against the Spurs.
Yeah, I remember when they had their first loss, I mentioned, I wonder if this is the start of their downfall, but I kind of said it half jokingly.
Yeah.
I didn't know they played the Spurs this much, though, in a row.
Well, they played the Spurs in the NBA Cup, and then they played them a few days, or yeah, it'd be a few days ago.
Does the NBA Cup count as regular season wins?
Yeah, the NBA Cup goes towards regular season wins.
I will say, for like the Warriors' record of, what was it, 73 and 9? I feel like the NBA Cup makes that harder to beat now because teams are going to be potentially more motivated in the start of the season.
Yeah, and you also have the potential of playing more harder teams in a row with
Yeah,
those teams being more competitive to win.
I never really thought about that. I know that Victor has some other good players on his team, but it's kind of reminding me of LeBron versus the Warriors, where you have one essentially good player with, some other good players, obviously, who's kind of carrying the team against the super team sort of thing. So yeah, like I said, that'll be fun to watch if they play each other in the playoffs. They're in the same conference, right?
Warriors and the Spurs and the Thunder.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're both in the West.
So that could be a likely playoff scenario.
That'd be a fun uh, series to watch.
Yeah, I agree. And in other news, the Bulls' 152 to 150 win over the Hawks. The Bulls did not take a single mid-range shot, and there were zero shots taken between 10 feet and 24 feet from the basket. This was one of the highest scoring games in NBA history, not the most. Um, but I looked at the stats, and both teams shot over 50% from three, which is probably why the score was so high.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people saying that is defense gone in the league. It's the mid-range shot gone in the league. Um, it's honestly hard to say. There's some teams that play good defense, and then there's some teams that play no defense.
It makes sense that the mid-range shot is kind of on its way out because they have people that work on like stats and stuff, and when you look at the stats, mid-range is one of the worst shots you can take when you look at the possible points you gain from it and then the chances of missing. A layup is a lot better because you're a lot more likely to make it and you're still getting the same amount of points. And then obviously 3 points is just better because you can shoot it at pretty similar percentages to deep mid ranges at least, but it's worth more points. So it makes up for that. So I'm not surprised, but I actually think it makes some players that benefit from shooting mid range stand out a bit more, like a KD or Shea to some extent. Um, yeah.
Moving on to our injuries in the league. Lakers Luka Doncic left early during the Lakers game against the Clippers with a leg contusion, and he did not play the other night. So he may be back after this episode goes up, but who knows?
And the Clippers' Ivica Zubac will miss several weeks due to a grade 2 left ankle sprain.
The Wizards' Cam Whitmore is out indefinitely after being diagnosed with upper extremity deep vein thrombosis in his right shoulder.
I think I briefly mentioned this, maybe the first or second episode of this podcast, but a lot of people don't take this injury very serious, or didn't take this injury very serious when Wimby was out for a while with it. But this is actually a very serious injury because essentially what this is it's a form of a blood clot, um, specifically in a region that's hard to get to. And a blood clot can cause all sorts of issues that could kill you. So, yeah, this is actually a very serious injury, and that's why they have to not play for a while. They don't want to risk dislodging it or anything.
So hopefully he can have a speedy recovery, but very sad that this is now the second player since starting the podcast that's had that injury.
Well, Wimby's was last year.
Oh, well.
All right, now we're going to move on to our last segment, which is our sort of random segment. So, first of all, uh, sadly, we have to report that former NASCAR champion Greg Biffle, as well as his wife and two young children, have tragically passed away in a plane crash, as well as the pilot, though the pilot, I believe his name has not been announced, at least last I saw. Um, yeah, very sad day for NASCAR fans, and um, I don't think I knew him, but I think he was kind of more prevalent around the time Jeff Gordon was a NASCAR racer, right?
I'd never heard of him before this accident because I didn't really follow NASCAR.
Hmm. Yeah, either way though, it's very sad. So our thoughts and prayers are with um, his family and obviously anyone involved.
Condolences. Kylian Mbappe wins the lawsuit against PSG. They owe him approximately $61 million. dollars.
So basically, what this lawsuit was is that when he was confirmed to be leaving the team dropped him from the starting lineup and didn't play him very much. Um, and so he sued them because obviously you can't just like do that. In a separate lawsuit though, PSG are apparently suing him back for hundreds of millions of dollars in what they claim to be damages. My guess is they're not probably going to win that, considering they just lost this one. But it's hard to say. I remember when he was like going to leave, there was a whole kind of talk about it, but I don't remember it being as bad as like something like a James Harden getting fat kind of thing. You remember all that stuff?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens, but either way, Mbappe just made bank. Not that he necessarily needed it.
We got some hockey news. Sidney Crosby breaks Mario Lemieux's Penguins franchise record with his 1,724th point.
And in men's basketball, Purdue Fort Wayne upset Notre Dame 72 to 69. They were a significant underdog. Odds to win were around negative 1,050 to 1,205.
Yeah, Notre Dame was also a 12.5 to 14.5 point favorite.
I think also earlier in the season, Purdue's women's team upset a very good team as well. So perhaps they got something rolling over there at Purdue Fort Wayne.
In other news in college basketball, Florida's 7'9" freshman Olivier Rouault is now the tallest player ever to score in a college basketball game. He actually did this off of a dunk.
Yeah, I think this was about a week and a half ago. Um, I don't, from what I've seen, he's probably not like the best player ever. I think they were up a lot at that game, and that's why he was even in the game. But it's hopefully he can improve and maybe make the NBA. I know that at a certain height, um, back injuries especially become very likely. So I think it's like somewhere above 7'5". The odds of like staying in the NBA is super slim historically. But we wish him the best. Speaking of college basketball, AJ DeBonsa is making history in men's college basketball. He has the highest points scored in a triple-double in Big 12 conference history, and he currently has two 30-point plus triple-doubles. Um, he's also the first player in Big 12 history with consecutive 30-point games on 75% shooting. He's the first D1 player in the last 30 seasons with a 30-point triple-double on 80% shooting, and he's the first D1 player to have 25 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, 5 assists per game on 60% shooting in a calendar month over the last 30 seasons.
Yeah, I think he's projected to be one of the top picks this season in the draft.
What year is he?
He's 18 years old, so I believe he's a freshman.
Wow.
He plays for BYU.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on him and hopefully he can make a name for himself in the NBA if he makes it.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a generational player, or maybe the best of his class. Maybe not so generational because we got Wemby,
Yeah.
but definitely got to keep an eye out for.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, that's will do it, I think. I hope that you guys have a Merry Christmas, and we're not quite sure what we're going to do next week because of the way the recording times line up with the holidays and stuff, but we will figure it out. It might be a shorter episode than normal. It might get canceled. Who knows? Either way, thank you guys for listening, and We will see you next week.
Yep. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Because we won't see you before the New Year either.
True. Yes, happy New Year and a Merry Christmas. See ya.
See ya.